The governor of Anambra State, Mr. Willie Obiano, has appealed to the federal government to show visible commitment towards fulfilling its promise to build emergency centres for flood-prone areas. Governor Obiano made the demand when he received a delegation from the Southeast's National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, in Awka, the state capital.
It's the rainy season, and the management of emergencies rising at this time of the year has become imperative, especially for states like Anambra, which is prone to flood. And the visit of the Southeast Zonal Delegation of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, is timely, as Governor Willie Obiano walks in to meet the team. He reminds them that the federal government is yet to fulfill its promise of building an emergency centre.
The federal government is supposed to be building a centre at Nizam for flood victims to occupy, just in case of flood. And that hasn't happened. I want yourselves to note it, and let's find out why they have not started that project. Nizam is very prone to flood, and that emergency building will be of immense benefit to that community should we have a major flood.
The leader of the delegation assures the governor that the agency is introducing initiatives that will engender a paradigm shift from disaster management to disaster risk reduction.
As we are working on building disaster-resistant communities, we intend to move into the communities with advocacy to relevant stakeholders. We intend to enlighten the communities with sensitization and education. We intend to build the capacity of young people to cope with disasters. We intend to educate the young people in schools to know about disaster risk reduction and what they can do.
Anambra is not the only state to be visited by NEMA, as states get set once again to prepare for the dangers usually brought on by flooding and its aftermath.
You're watching the news on Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos. Let's quickly shift gears, shall we, to our Abuja studios, where Gloria Mezweke is standing by to take us through. Gloria.
Hello, Gimba. Good to see you, and welcome to Abuja, the nation's capital. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, has begun a road show in the Chinese capital, Beijing, to attract investments into the nation's oil and gas industry. Opening the forum, Petroleum Minister Dr. Pt.3 says Nigeria is a preferred investors' destination because of its liberal policies and quick returns on investment. The NNPC is targeting about $15 billion foreign investment from China and the Gulf states to replace and expand its aging infrastructure in the oil industry.
Chinese officials and businessmen at the Investors Forum organized by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation in Beijing, the Chinese capital. Addressing the gathering, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources describes Nigeria as a unique environment for investment because of its vast resources waiting to be harnessed, and called on investors to take advantage of the opportunities in the country.
In terms of resource availability, Nigeria remains one of the highest in the world. Now, you look at the economy itself. The GDP of 568 billion and 180 million people. Again, the highest GDP in Africa. 180 million people. Now, compared to a place like China, we're looking at over 1 billion people. Obviously, these are small numbers. But looking at the resource base, looking at the size of our geography, this is a huge population. 1 out of every 4 Africans is a Nigerian. So that's a huge population to work with.
The forum, tagged China Investors Roadshow 2016, aims to attract investments for the replacement and expansion of infrastructure, such as the aging pipelines and refineries in the nation's oil and gas industry.
Like Nigeria is the giant of Africa, like we say, NNPC is the giant of Nigeria. And what is NNPC? It's a huge company with a lot of resources, a lot of potentials, whose potentials have been left fully undeveloped over the years.
An indigenous investor in the industry lends his voice to the attraction in the nation's oil and gas industry. According to him, Nigeria's oil and gas industry is a major platform on which the country aims to diversify its economy. He identifies Nigeria's population as an advantage for quick yields and investments. The NNPC aims to raise $50 billion investment in its roadshows. Its target of investors are China, India, and the Gulf countries. At the roadshow in China, the Minister of State for Petroleum has signed Memorandum of Understanding worth $30 billion.
Well, this may come as cheering news for working-class mothers, as the Minister of Health, Professor Isaac Adewale, is advocating 6 months maternity leave for them to encourage breastfeeding for babies. The Health Minister made the proposal at a forum in Abuja, where both international donor agencies and commissioners of health discussed how to promote breastfeeding in the country. According to the minister, women who refuse their infants exclusive breastfeeding do not only have higher risk of cancer, but also expose their babies to diseases.
It's a high-level policy meeting with government officials and international donor agencies to promote breastfeeding in Nigeria. A representative of the World Health Organization says only 37% of mothers around the globe practice exclusive breastfeeding. He says Nigeria is a major consumer of breast milk substitutes to the detriment of children.
The breast milk substitute industry is large, very large. In 2014, it was worth about $45 billion. China, the Middle East, South Africa, and Nigeria that are the main drivers of growth in the milk formula industry. But it is at the expense of children's lives and their future health.
Other experts listed the benefits of breastfeeding practice to both the infant and the mother.
Increasing breastfeeding rates, early initiation, and exclusive breastfeeding can significantly reduce child death. Stunting and underweight among the under 5 children in Nigeria is very high. And this is partly because of the inappropriate feeding from birth.
Meanwhile, the Minister of Health is advocating for 6 months maternity leave for working women to encourage breastfeeding.
For us in the Ministry of Health, we will be committed and will translate that commitment into action. With Chris there, we will start and set in motion the process for extending the maternity leave from 4 months to 6 months, and I think we do.
Some statistics presented at this event reveal that only 20% of women in Nigeria practice exclusive breastfeeding.
Well, gunmen have attacked Guruguzu village in Igabi local government area of Kaduna State, northwest Nigeria, killing 4 persons and leaving about 4 others injured. The State Assistant Commissioner of Police in charge of operations, Ahmed Abdullahi, who confirmed the incident to a journalist, explained that the incident occurred at about 5:50 yesterday evening. He added that security operatives have been deployed to the area to keep the peace.
Immediately we had this information, we quickly mobilized our patrol team to the area to ensure normalcy is returned. The victims, that is the injured ones, were rushed to the hospital for treatment, while the corpses were also taken to the hospital for autopsy. As at now, our patrol team, that is the police segment, the Army, the Air Force, and other security agencies are there to ensure normalcy is returned, and in fact, we are on top of the situation. The town, we learned, is deserted. Most of them came to Kaduna, came to Regasa area, Regasa proper from the village, and camped in a primary school. So we are now trying to push out the perpetrators because they came on a motorbike, stormed the farm, and carried out this heinous crime or heinous act, and they run away. But by the grace of God, we'll get them arrested.
Well, that's it from Abuja. It's over now to Adeshowa for business news.
You first. First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Gloria. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Business News. The Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation says the country's banking industry remains stable and sound despite the current economic downturn. According to the corporation's latest annual report for 2015, the sector's total assets grew marginally by 1.36%, while total loans and advances rose by 5.56%. The report also indicates that average liquidity ratio rose slightly from 53.65% in 2014 to 58.18% in 2015, while capital adequacy ratio was 17.66% in 2015, compared with 15.92% in 2014. However, total deposit liabilities declined by 2.83%, while non-performing loans increased by 82.87% in 2015. In the meantime, shareholders' funds unimpaired by losses increased by 14.02%. The Minister of Finance, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, has directed all staff of the National Economic Reconstruction Fund to return to their duty posts with immediate effect. Executive and senior management staff of the fund had been in disputes over remunerations for extra time at work. Following the resolution of the dispute, the minister in a statement affirmed that all staff are now free to resume their duties.
The MDAs have applied. Many of them, it has been processed, and some money has been released. I know, for instance, the Ministry of Works has received a very large amount of funds. And so we're going ministry by ministry. The funds are being released.
I agree with you that 2016 budget implementation, capital budget, started fairly late. But the recurrent aspect started, in January. So there is no problem about that one. The capital component, the projects that are already ongoing, I think funds are being released now or have been released for those projects. But for new projects and programs, I've seen numerous advertisements in the daily newspapers calling for bids to be able to award the contracts, and the implementation of the projects and programs will continue.
Still ahead on the news at 10, the Nigerian stock market closed bearish today as investors continue to take profit off stocks. We have details for you in just a moment. Do stay with us.